so you can picture like this, all of these different fish floating around out there and being moved around by these big waves and so on. Do you think that any one of those fish is capable of thinking that they're doing the wrong thing? That they should be nibbling over at this coral instead of that piece of coral, or they should have gone right instead of left, or they should have gone up instead of down? Can you imagine any creature other than human beings using their mind that way?
No, not at all.
Yeah. And, you're part of nature, too. So, like, all of these inclinations for you to, you try something, it doesn't work. You try something else, it doesn't. And then something else grabs your attention, and it's like I'm reading a novel right now. It's called Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, which I recommend to everyone. It's about the Middle Ages. Yeah, it's just an astonishingly good book, and I don't hardly ever take time to read a 1,000-page novel. But I decided to do that before I start writing my own book next month or so. I like to read really great writings. I decided to write this now. It's taken me, 2.5 weeks or so of almost full time just to read this book. It's very time consuming. But never once do I ever say to myself, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be taking time to read a novel when you've got a book of your own to write, and you could be out there and you could be making money over here, and what about this? And then your kids are coming, and what about... I don't do that. I never did that in my life, Eric. I just said, this is what I'm doing, and this is where I am today, and if I've got 6 different books that I'm reading or different projects going, I say to myself, this is God talking to me. It's allowing me to experiment over here, to try this, to check this out, and instead of being so hard on myself and telling myself I shouldn't be doing that, give yourself permission to say, this is just part of my experimentation, because the purpose of life isn't to make your mark. Those were your words. You don't have a mark to make. The purpose of life is to enjoy it. Just that every creature on the planet knows that except us, and we get all mixed up. We have a dharma, like that fish that I'm talking about has a dharma, like the mosquito, like the rose, like everything has a dharma, and just allow yourself to be carried by it and flow with it, and stop being so hard on yourself. And you might have 20 different things going at one time, which I've had a big part of my life. I'm often writing a book and reading a book and and thinking about a speech and dealing with this in a relationship over here and dealing with that financial matter over there. And all of it, I just say, this is just who I am. And this is, I let myself be carried by the great Tao. Stop being so hard on yourself. You don't have a mark to make. You've already made your mark. You're 44 years old. You're a beautiful man. And, the only thing you have to do is enjoy every day that you have. Okay?
I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. God bless you, my friend. Namaste. Dale Carnegie once said that man is not made to understand life, but to live it. And Helen Keller had this wonderful observation. I've had it on my desk for a long time. I wanted to say it on the radio show. She said, now Helen Keller was blind and deaf and, she couldn't speak, and she had endless sort of physical incapacities. She said, I trust, and nothing that happens disturbs my trust. I recognize the beneficence of the power which we all worship as supreme. Order, fate, the great spirit, nature, God. I recognize this power in the sun that makes all things grow and keeps life afoot. I make a friend of this indefinable force, and straightway I feel glad, brave, and ready for any lot heaven may decree for me. This is my religion. I just love that. Yeah, because I've often said, you've heard it said a million times, the kingdom of heaven is within. You've heard that many times, right?
Sure.
The kingdom of heaven is within. But you know what? The kingdom of hell is within, too.
That's true. Very true.
And, if your life has got some kind of hell involved in it, that's something that comes from inside you as well. So gratitude is something that you can really practice a lot. I mean, you can practice gratitude for the sun, for the moon, for the flowers, for the for the air you're breathing, for the people in your life, for endless kinds of things. As that quote I gave earlier from Epictetus, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. To be in a state of just rejoicing for what you have. And I used to give, when I was lecturing more, I would talk about, think about things like you never think about that, like think about your liver. Or think about your eye, or think about your arm, or your spleen, or your heart. These things that without, if you didn't have them, if your liver decides to stop functioning for, in 10 minutes, you're going to be dead. So here's this thing that's inside of you, this heart that just keeps beating and beating, ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom. And we just sort of take it for granted. Oh, yeah, that's my heart. But I mean, you can go into a state of just being in such a state of gratitude. My God, there's this thing inside of me that just beats every single day. And without it, I couldn't even breathe.
All things are possible. If you've been addicted to something for 20 years, if you've been overweight your whole life, if you've been poor your whole life, you've been saying, I am poor, I am fat, I am unworthy. You are using the name of God in vain. You must begin to say, I am healthy, I am happy, I am content, I am well-being, I am addiction-free, and be able to say it. Forget about what your senses tell you, you forget everything else. William Blake, the great poet, said, to see the world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, to hold eternity in the palm of your hand and infinity in an hour, we are all led to believe a lie when we see with, not through the eye, which was born in a night to perish in a night, while the soul slept in beams of light. The soul. When you align your soul with what wants to expand and not be held back, and push away all forces that will try to encumber you, will try to restrict you. Your soul is miserable when you're trying to live out somebody else's dharma, an idea of what you should be. You must be able to do it from within, and when you do, the most amazing things begin to happen. And there's an observation from the New Testament that says, in the presence of him whom he believed God, who gives life to the dead, and calls, and these are the most important words, I think, in Romans, the book of Romans 4:17, and calls these things which do not exist as though they did. This is the secret. This is what I've been reading about all day about time. You've got to be able to say not only that I am perfect health, I am well, I am prosperous, I am employed, I am whatever it is that if you would like to place into your imagination, you have to ignore everything that comes your way that conflicts with that, including your own senses. Most importantly, what your eyes and your ears and the reports tell you. You must be able to hold firm this idea and call things as God, and you are God, calls things which do not exist as though they did. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This is so significant because your feelings are beyond your intellect. Your feeling is what you experience in your body. And when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are taking over your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is the mind that does 96 to 97% of everything that you do. How do you think you got here today? You got in your cars or you got on a plane and you drove here and you got, did you think about what you were doing when you were driving? Did you think I got to put my foot on the brake? I got to slow it down? You drive all over. You could drive all the way across the country and never have one conscious thought about it. Your conscious mind is used to program your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is amenable to suggestions. Your subconscious mind doesn't care whether you're right or wrong, whether it's good or bad. It only accepts everything that you place into it. Hey, I'm 71 years old. At the age of 18, I was in the Navy. They sent me to Bainbridge, Maryland, to become a radioman cryptographer. And for 3 weeks, my conscious mind was programmed for an hour a day to learn Morse code. And I sat in front of a typewriter and I did Morse code an hour a day. That was 51 years ago. I have never used Morse code since. My subconscious mind, after all these years that it was programmed, it's still doing the did-its, the dot-its, the dot-its. I can't get it out of there. Do you know how many did-its, dot-its, dot-its that you have? Here they are. I can't do this. I'm not very attractive. I'm not intelligent. I'm poor. I'm not allowed to have this. I'm not worthy of this. Did-it, dot-it. I can't make this thing happen. Did-it. I can't create miracles. Did-it. I can't get over a hill. Your subconscious mind has been programmed. It doesn't take very much to get it in there. Getting it out of there is like one of the most crucial things that you can do. You have to begin to pay attention to everything that comes at you that's involved with what's in your subconscious mind. I mean, Jill Clayburgh, the great actress, just passed away. She passed away from the same kind of leukemia that I have. I had about 11 different people send me a picture of her and tell me, she was younger than you. And is that what I want to hear? Is that what I want to program my subconscious mind to begin to believe? I'm watching TV and the newscaster, Brian Williams, is on there. He said, we're going away. We'll be right back. And when we come back, we're going to give the 10 early warning signs for Alzheimer's disease. Boy, that's what I want to write down. I want to make sure I carry those with. Do you ever walk into a room and forget what you walked in there for? I've been doing doing that since I was 12. Do I want to program myself? Your subconscious mind is always getting things thrown at it to take out of your consciousness the things that you have placed in there that you want to manifest and attract for yourself in your life. When you use the words I am, you are using the name of God. When you act and live from that place and call things that do not exist as if they did, and live from that and base how you feel and how your life is going on how you feel and your connection to God rather than on what somebody else tells you, you have had programmed into you about what can and can't happen. And the fact is, with God, all things are possible.
I've used this metaphor so many times in my life as I was ask an audience, when you have an orange and you squeeze an orange, what comes out? And the answer, of course, is orange juice. And the reason that orange juice comes out when you squeeze an orange is because it's an orange. That's what's inside of an orange. So, and the same thing is true of you. You can't squeeze an orange and get grapefruit juice. There's just no possibility. You can't squeeze an orange and get plum juice. You just can't do it. And when someone squeezes you, and which is what your parents do, and put pressure on you and make you feel whatever it is that you feel, and out of you comes anger and resentment and bitterness and fear and all of the stuff that comes out because you've been squeezed. It's not because of who did the squeezing. Orange juice doesn't come out of an orange because of who squeezes it or how they squeeze it. It comes out because that's what's inside. So you have the ability to change what's inside. And what's inside of you is stuff that you have been carrying around in there about your parents that is a part of your subconscious training. And you can shift your subconscious training at any moment in your life. I've been doing this with certain things in my life right now for the last year or so, changing some habits that I have had for a lifetime, that I have behaved in certain. I'm not even going to say what they are because some of them are just so silly. They're just personal little things. And I've never been able to change them. And I've just made a conscious decision. I remember when I decided to change biting my fingernails when I was back in college. And everyone said how hard that is. I remember what it was when I quit smoking and when I quit alcohol and so on. And you have the same kinds of habits. And you have allowed the parents squeezing you to allow something other than love to come out of you. And this is going to be a great test for you. So, and if you find yourself when you're in their presence and they say something, you find yourself getting really pissed off and they've just said this and it just really upsets you, you instantly just make that conversion within your mind and say, nope, I'm going to only send love. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. That's a great suggestion. I never thought of that before, regardless, because I am not going to allow myself to be in this place with them, and I'm only going to allow to come out of me what's inside. And what's inside is what you choose to put there as a result of your deciding that my subconscious mind is no longer going to be operating out of those habits that don't work for me. Those habits got you into the need to have recovery in the first place.
Right.
That's why you went to alcohol. That's why you went to drugs, whatever it was that you went to, because you were looking for something external to yourself in order to allow yourself to feel good. But it never works, does it? It just doesn't work. So what you want to do is go to something within you that will keep you on the road not only of your recovery, but your recovery isn't for you. Your recovery is so that you can become this instrument of love and help other people. Okay, you got a line in the sand, all right? Yeah. And on one side of the line is you, yeah. And on the other side of the line is your mother and father and other relatives who are, let's just say, not aligned the same way that you are, okay? Right. Let's just say that. So I want you to stay on your side of the line, okay? Right. But I want you to understand that you can send anything over to anybody else on the other side of that line anytime without you having to go over there or without having you have them come to you. And all you have to do, you don't have to cross the line in the sense of going over there and having them in your face. You never have to have that. You don't have to choose to have somebody there who is abusive towards you or who's aligned in a different way or who isn't honest or, who's whatever they are, because there's lots and lots of people like that. I've got deals like that going on in my own family, in my own family with my own children. On the other hand, I want to send her as much love as I possibly can. And I do that on a regular, and you can do that. You can do that not with just sending spiritual love. You can do it physically as well. You can send flowers, and you can send books, and you can, without opening the floodgate and allowing that energy to come back, and you can do just as much good. not only for them, but for yourself, by being this instrument of love. I've always used that quote of Jesus so often. I've heard it so many times said of him that when he would go into a village, just his presence in the village and nothing more would elevate the consciousness of everyone in the village. And I can never forget Mother Teresa and her, when she walked into a room and I saw the entire energy of the room change. And I saw myself do it yesterday or Saturday in Las Vegas when I walked into a room and was able to, by sending out just love to everyone in the room, I was able to see and feel the entire energy of that room change as I was walking in there. You can do that.
And if you can go to that infinite place and just, put love out there, from the very worst offenders to just people who are speeding, to, people who are, jaywalking, to people who are assaulting others, everything out there, it's a cry for love. It's a cry to be back closer to God. And if you can do that and remind yourself of that and just extend a little kindness where brutality or anger or hatred or just being fed up just seems to take over, if you can do that, you're doing God's work.
I write every day. I'm writing a book now, a companion book for the movie The Shift. And so we're going to bring this out, early next year. And so it's like I'm on a writing binge or whatever it is that you call it right now. But I have all of these little rituals that I go through that I don't think of as I come over to my writing space, I close the door, I take a nap, I'll lie down, I'll give myself however long that I want to have, I'll free up the afternoon, and then I'll go over and sit down and write, and I'll say, oh, it's not quite right yet. And I'll sit down and I'll meditate and I'll get very quiet. And then all of a sudden a spark goes off inside of me. And that's I call it my intuitive voice, and it's really God speaking to me. I've often said it, if prayer is you talking to God, then your intuition is God talking to you. And it's like, if you're not ready to write, if you haven't really set yourself up for that creative enterprise, don't be hard on yourself. Don't tell yourself that you should be doing that and the writing has to be, because what happens when you do that is you get into a place called striving. You get into trying and struggling and making this thing that you want to do, that you know how to do. What I would do, if I were you, I would go into that, whatever. If you want to rest. If you want to go for a walk, go for a walk. If you want to get on the telephone and talk to me from Vancouver, get on the telephone. Get very peaceful. But then begin to just imagine, see in your imagination, see this project being completed. Just see it completed. Because I've already seen the book done and completed. I've already got the book jacket in front of me. And I'm still 3 months away from finishing the writing of it. But rather than making it difficult, making it a chore, making it hard, make the creative process something that is just so sweet and then just sort of suspend yourself, get your ego out of the picture completely, and remind yourself, you're not writing this, you're not creating this, you're just a vehicle, allowing it to come through you. That God writes all the speeches and writes all the books and delivers all the talk. That intuitive part of you, just let it do it, and it'll flow right out of you. What happens is we get our ego involved in it, and then we have to struggle with it, and then we say, well, creative work is hard work, and you have to and we've learned these are memes that we learned when we were very little boys and little girls, that you have to work very hard to make things happen. And I think that the people who are the greatest at whatever they do, I watched Tiger Woods swing a golf club, and he doesn't look like he's having any effort, how difficult it is at all. I watch Roger Federer play tennis, and he just glides along the court. And I watch Michael Jordan play basketball, and my goodness, he can soar through the air because he wasn't trying so hard. He was just allowing his natural connection to his source to fulfill itself out there on the court. And I think you can do that in your writing as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everything that you fight weakens you. It doesn't empower you. It's trying to make creation difficult. The creative process, to think like God thinks. Here's what I would do. Here's the steps that I would take. I would, in my mind, in my imagination, I would see it as already completed. If nothing else, I would have a picture of it already completed there to look at. And I would then go to the feeling state within my body and assume the feeling of this wish already fulfilled. And then every time I thought about, every time this subject of this animation thing that I'm going to do would come up, I would go to that feeling of how good it feels to have this completed. And then I would work from the end. I would meditate on it. I would sit down. I would be peaceful about it. And then I would stop telling myself that it's me that has to do this, that I'm doing this, that this is my job. I have to do it. I would just say, what St. Francis said when he was starting his prayer. He said, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. He didn't say, please give me some peace. I don't have any peace. Everybody wants something from me. Everybody wants to be saved. Everybody wants to be healed. He didn't say that. He said, make me an instrument of thy peace. In other words, let me be what you are. Let me be in that place of effortless perfection, what the Japanese call shibumi. Let me be in that place of effortless perfection. Just allow it to flow, and then just watch, and it'll flow, and it'll be the sweetest writing that you've ever done. And then, if it isn't exactly the way you want it, give it to an editor, because there are people who incarnated to come here to be editors as well. Don't deny them. That's what I do. I have an editor, Joanna Pyle, up in Bainbridge Island in Washington. And she's been my editor for 30 years, and I just let it come, and then I turn it over to her. I said, okay, now you rearrange this and do that and fix this and put it in its place, because that's what she's here for. And a lot of what's in The Shift, the movie The Shift, is very much like that. I always love what Picasso said. I think I quoted it a few weeks ago, what Picasso said about his painting. He said, when I enter my painting studio, he said, I leave my body at the door the way the Muslims leave their shoes when they enter the mosque. Yeah, and it's like, so leave your body at the door, and just paint from your soul and write from your soul. To me, it's almost like a game. When I run into negative people, if it's a waiter, if it's a flight attendant, if it's, just anybody, and if I hear negativity, sometimes even in grocery stores, I will walk up to people. I'll see a woman really angry at her child and screaming, and I'll just walk up and stand close and see if just by standing there, if I can radiate out a different kind of energy. And very often, I can see the whole relationship changing with waiters and with flight attendants and people that I'm dealing with, or even friends and so on. For me, it's always an opportunity to see if I can, by the end of our conversation or whatever interaction that we have, if I can convert them. Because, in the prayer of St. Francis, which I always said, I wrote a book based on that prayer called A Spiritual Solution to Every Problem, and we have the CDs on that at Hay House. But basically, I always thought of that as a 11th century technology more than anything else. That he said, where there is, make me an instrument of thy peace, where there is doubt, faith, where there is despair, hope, where there is darkness, life, where there is sadness, joy. In other words, if you can bring joy to sadness, if you can bring love to hatred, if you can bring pardon to injury, what you're really doing is bringing a different energy to it. It's like when you walk into a room and you turn on the light, the darkness, disappears, because all it takes is just a little bit of light to make darkness go away. You don't have to go in and look for some light and try to find it and then talk to the darkness and say, okay, darkness, you can't exist here and let me talk to you. Darkness dissolves the moment that you bring light to it. And so does hatred. It dissolves when you bring light to it. It's an energy kind of shift. And this is the way I look at all of the negativity that comes into my life, whoever it may be. And I see it around me on a regular basis. I was talking to my daughter, Serena, last night, who made me a wonderful Father's Day dinner, which I tweeted about or whatever on Twitter. But she was talking about how somebody else was so judgmental, and she just hated the idea. It was an ex-boyfriend she was talking about, and he judged this and he judged that. And I just stopped her and I said, what are you doing right now, about him? In other words, it's like, let's bring a different kind of consciousness to, this old boyfriend, rather than, and as she began to talk about it and think about it, she said, it's exactly right. It's exactly what I was doing, the very same thing I'm criticizing him for. She didn't get angry. It wasn't a long interchange and exchange or whatever. It's just bringing a different consciousness. Very often, you don't even have to say anything. You just have to bring light. I've always used the quote I read someplace about Jesus. They said that when he would enter a village, just his presence in the village and nothing more would raise the consciousness of the entire village. And when people have very, very high energy, and they bring that energy to spiritual energy, the highest and fastest energy in the universe, when you bring the presence of that to any kind of negativity that is around you, you elevate it. And the problem that most people have with negative people is that they blame the negative people for bringing them down. But that's inconsistent that's counterintuitive to what the prayer of St. Francis teaches. That the reason that negative people bring you down isn't because of their negativity, it's because you join them and become equally negative as well. That is, you hate someone for hating you. You get angry at someone for being angry at you. You get depressed because someone around you is depressing. And instead of maintaining and hanging on to your high energy, which will help that low energy to dissolve and dissipate, like when you bring light to darkness, instead you take on the darkness and you become some of the darkness yourself, and then you just expand the darkness or the negativity. And that's all you have to do to keep in mind over and over and over again, that it isn't them, it isn't their negativity that has any impact on me at all. I think of it as a wonderful opportunity to practice radiating out a higher spiritual energy and seeing other people around me be converted.
Yeah, I've heard you say in the past that you have liked to do that at airports.
I was sitting next to a woman on the airplane coming over here from Maui, just on my way back here from my week-long tour of the country doing PBS and QVC and everything. Very nice lady. She was 50 years old. She was retiring from a big company and so on. And she recognized me, and she was asking me who I liked, in the way of celebrities. And I was telling her about some of the people that were really very, like I was telling her to Dinah Shore, particularly, someone who she used to have a show that I did for 87 weeks back in the 80s, and how wonderful and kind and so on that she was. And then she said to me, who don't you like? And like, who are the celebrities out there that are really, bastards or whatever? And I just, my instant response was, I don't think like that. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I don't think about people that I don't like, because I never encounter anyone I don't like. And it was like, I was thinking about, that's one of the ways to stop gossip. That's one of the ways to stop the negativity that is out there, is just to remind people, whoever it is out there that I have met, even if I had a difficulty with them, they were teachers for me. They weren't someone that I would walk away and then criticize and judge. I wrote a lot about this, approval seeking and all that. I wrote in my very first book, Your Erroneous Zones, written back in 1975. But I didn't always practice it, because I used to read, I'd put something out there, I'd do an interview, I'd be on a talk show or something, and there would be stories about me the next day, and I'd read my reviews when I'd write a book, and, and so on. And I think at this time now, and especially in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, I've actually really, truly gotten into a place in my life where it just doesn't make any difference. And the reviews are something that I just have very little to do with. And I gave a speech Saturday in Las Vegas, and I was talking about this whole idea of living your life free of being concerned about what the outcome is, whether people are going to like it or not going to like it, and what a freeing place that is to be in your life. This whole idea that you treat other people's opinions, whether they're good opinions or whether they're bad opinions, exactly the same. So if someone gets up there and tells you how wonderful you are and you're the greatest and you're the best, you treat that exactly the same as if they tell you what a jerk you are and how, and how you're. And one of the places that I see where I get to practice this is on Amazon, because on where my books are listed on Amazon, they have reviews, and almost every day there's a new review or two in there of a book. There's, but Wishes Fulfilled probably has 200 or 300 reviews in there now of people, and it'll be very interesting to read them and just go down and, one will have 5 stars or whatever, 4, whatever their maximum number is, and just say how wonderful it is, and another one will do that, and then another one will come along with a half a star and tell me, that he's writing books because he's just out there to make money and try to, capitalize on other people's troubles. And I think when a person does that, I think, you could never even imagine that. I go over there and I sit down and I write and write and write, and the pressure that is there, and the anxiety, and the to take an empty page of paper with nothing on it and to fill it with something just from your own consciousness, and to make it come out as a book, and to sit there for 5, 6, 7 hours a day for a year, and that the reason that I'm sitting there doing it is because how much money I can make and who I'm going to rip off, and what, it's like there's just never a possibility of that even being a thought in my head. I write because writing is something that I have to do. And being concerned about whether people like me or don't like me, whether people buy it or don't buy it, it's never been a concern for anything that I've ever done. And I would suggest that's true for great artists and musicians and, people who have made, huge impacts and so on. They don't go to their studio and paint every day because somebody else is going to be out there making a lot of money and buying them. I mean, Van Gogh never made a penny in his entire lifetime from all of the great paintings that he made. He painted because painting is his soul, it's his excitement, it's what aligns him with your source of being. And it's the same with me with writing. But people who are not there, people who are short of money, who don't have as much or so on, will immediately transpose their idea of, the only reason that I would sit down and do that is because I could make some money, and that's the reason that they're not making money, and that's the reason that they're not writing. Whereas a writer or an artist or a musician or a creative person of any kind goes in there, whatever it is that they're doing, and they do it because in their soul they're saying, this is what excites me, this is what aligns me with who I truly am, who I showed up here to be, where you're no longer concerned about whether people like or don't like what you say. And you know that, like, I've just written a book I'm just finishing up now, but it's still an enormous amount of work left to do before it'll be published, called I Can See Clearly Now. And I know as I go through these chapters every day and edit them and so on, I know in my soul that that there's going to be a lot of people who are going to give me a lot of criticism for the things that I am saying and that have influenced me throughout my entire life. And I just write them anyway and just know. And the nicest thing about being in this place in your life is that when you look at the review section, you don't even have to look at how many stars you get. You don't have to look at, and you can just read them sort of dispassionately and treat the negative ones exactly the same as the positive ones. I used to have this metaphor that I always used to use. You probably heard me use it on the radio show in the last few years. When someone would be all upset, especially when I was counseling with young people, and they'd be all upset about what their friends said and so on, and they say, what makes you so upset? Well, they called me a jerk, or they said I was terrible, or they told a lie about me, and I'm just so upset. Why would they do that? And I would say to them, well, let's just stop. I said, today they think that you're a jerk. Tomorrow they might think that you're, a surfboard, or they might think that you're a tree, or they might call you a car and tell you to get down on your knees. They've got a funnel. They're going to pour gasoline into your ear because you're a car today. Would you be a car because somebody else thought that you were a car and told you that you were a car, or a surfboard, or a tree? You said, well, of course not. I couldn't be that. And I said, well, why would you then allow their opinions of you being a jerk, or you being a fool, or you being, dishonest, or whatever it is that they've said about you? It's no different than if they've called you something else. You have to be independent of the good opinion of other people.
And here's my question to you. My question to you is, why is it such a stretch to believe that the purpose of our life was already in what Khalil Gibran said, the great Lebanese poet? When you are born, your work is placed in your heart. I'd say it's even before you're conceived. It's when you made that shift from the world of spirit into that tiny little subatomic particle that began you. When that moment of going from formless to form moved you into spirit, you moved in spirit, you became inspired. And you signed up for that, and you know that. There's a part of you that knows. Why is it such a stretch to believe that the shape of your body, the shape of your life, the shape of your eye, your physicalness, every physical attribute that you have right here, and all of you know that this physical attributes that define your body were not something that you choose every day. I hold a hair up on the pillow in the morning and ask the metaphysical question, what held it in yesterday? I don't know. You know things are drooping. You know the hair color is changing. You know the skin is sagging a little bit. You know that the physicalness that you are is like a future pull that is in a tiny little microscopic dot that began at the moment of your conception. But that tiny little microscopic dot, if we take it back to find out where it really emanated from, you would discover that it didn't come at all from a physical perspective. It came from the world of formlessness. If the shape of your eye and the shape of your legs and the shape of your body and the color of your skin and everything else about you in a physical sense not only emanated from a tiny little drop of human protoplasm, but it actually emanated from a energy field that is formless, then why is it such a stretch to assume that your life and your purpose and what you were intended to be is also in that same energy field? It's so mysterious to just watch your body go through what it's going through, but to understand that what you're here for, what you signed up for, what your source is. And what I want to spend the time that I have here with you this afternoon, I want to go back to this source because that's what I'm working on, I think. I probably am, because I can't stop it. It's been the same for as many years as I've been writing books, and I've written 25 of them. And in each of these experiences, particularly since a book called You'll See It When You Believe It back in the 80s, which represented a major shift in my life from psychology into spirituality, that it's almost as if it can't be stopped. When you become inspired, Patanjali said, by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all of your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new and a great and a wonderful world. And then he said, I love this, dormant forces. That is, forces that you thought were not available to you, were dead, inactive. When you become inspired now, he said, dormant, when you move into spirit, dormant forces, faculties and talents come alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. Dormant forces. You begin to have a collaboration with fate, and what Jung called synchronistic events and synchronistic people, and the right, all kinds of everythings begin to show up for you and work for you. And at the beginning, when this first starts happening for you, you go, whoa, booga, booga, booga. You're not going to believe this. I was just thinking about so-and-so, and I couldn't get them out of my mind. And then the telephone rang, and it was them, and they answered the phone, and you call everybody that you know. You need to get something done. You need to get something fixed. You need to have something work in a new way. And you can't figure out how to get it done. And then you're driving along the freeway and you look and it says, we will fix whatever it is you need fixed. And you go, whoa, what happened? And you follow them down the highway, jotting down the numbers to get things working for you. Everybody, this is a universal human experience. I don't even have to ask for a show of hands, because I know that everybody in the room has experienced this kind of a thing. But what I'd like to suggest to you, as you begin to move up this way towards vibrating to a faster and a faster energy, to source energy, you get yourself to a place where you not only are no longer calling everybody that you know when it happens, but you start to have a sort of an expectation. Why, of course. I've been thinking about this. This is something, and when I think about it, and I have a vibrational match with my desire, and what it is that I am thinking matches up with what it is that I would like to create, and I'm on the same frequency there, why, of course it's going to materialize. I would expect nothing else. And then you get to a point where you almost get a little bit arrogant about it. You know, like, what's taken you so long? And it becomes, these dormant forces are no longer dormant. And it's all about moving into this energy field, moving closer to source. The basic message that I have for you here tonight is that you came from a source energy that I call the field of intention. And your job in every thought and in every feeling and in every action is to get yourself back into harmony with that source. Because you're listening to somebody who really believes this stuff and practices it and lives it on a regular basis. I was being interviewed in Chicago this summer, and a woman said to me, she said, you know, there are a lot of people out there who would suggest that you're making a lot of money off of these books and tapes and programs that you're putting out there. And I said, well, they would be right. I am. A lot of money. I said, yes, that's true. And she said, well, don't you feel a little bit guilty about making money off of these kinds of things? I said, well, you know, I really would feel guilty. I would like to feel guilty about it. I said, but it's not my fault. She said, what do you mean it's not your fault? I said, well, money is just a symbol of the abundance that the source offers for the entire universe. It's an endless supply, and it's neutral. It's just one symbol of it, and it really doesn't care where it goes. And wherever I go, it just follows after me. It's not really my fault. She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, I lived in foster homes and orphanage when I was a kid, and I was the richest kid in the orphanage. I said, everybody else used to talk about not being able to get money to buy a Coca-Cola for themselves or a donut or whatever, and to me, it was just so simple. I just always felt that I was entitled to have money show up in my life. And because of that belief, because of that absolute knowing that I was entitled to have this abundance show up in my life, I acted upon that belief. And as a result of acting upon it, when it would snow, I'd go out and shovel people's snow. First, I used to ask on the doors, would you like to have your snow shoveled? And people would say no. Then I discovered if you go out and shovel the snow, and then tell them I shoveled your snow, and you go up there with your best little orphan behavior, dress up as Oliver, wear your mittens that have holes in them. They're better than the good mittens you have back in the drawer. Bite your fingers so they look red. Get your ears nice and red. I just shoveled your walk. Sometimes you get a dime. Once I got a quarter. It doesn't sound like much, but that was 1947. That's $2,000 in today's money. People used to drink soda bottles, and I found out that you could get 2 cents for a soda bottle, for a soda pop bottle. I used to follow people around who were drinking soda pop. Excuse me, will you be done with that soon? What do you want? What are you doing? Well, I'll just, when you're done, I'll just take the bottle off of your hands and would take them back. I'll go down to the grocery store and carry out little old ladies' groceries. And in a sense, that's what I do today, just to larger audiences in a little different form. But abundance is something that you attract into your life because you have an awareness internally that you're entitled to it and that it is something that you are already a part of. And if you don't have, it's like I've told Sky when she wanted to get her CD out there, I said, honey, you've got to contemplate yourself as surrounded by the conditions which you wish to produce. Always contemplate yourself surrounded by the conditions you wish to produce. One of the favorite observations I made from the Thomas Troward lectures back in 1907 in Scotland, the Dory lectures. He said, we know that by the very nature, now get this is really good. We know that by the very nature of the creative process, we are one with the originating spirit. We are one with the spirit from which we emanated. And therefore, we are one with all of the principles of its being. And consequently, we are one with its infinite personality. And therefore, our contemplation of it, get this, our contemplation of it being this creative process, is the power which we want to give us the ability to use that power. It is only in the contemplation of that power that you are able to get that power. And you cannot contemplate what you don't want, which almost all of you do on a regular basis, and keep getting surprised that what you don't want keeps showing up. The law of flotation, as I've told Sky 10,000 times, was not discovered by the contemplation of the sinking of things. The law of flying 100 years ago was not discovered by the contemplation of the staying on the ground of things. Imagine the Wright brothers saying, this thing will never get off the ground, and going to Kitty Hawk with that kind of a belief system. It is in the ability to get that vibrational match that I just spoke about that I want to move to now. And that vibrational match that I'm speaking about is to look at any desire that you might have in your life and to understand one of the things that Einstein suggested also, which I spoke about last week in New York, was that everything in this universe is energy and that nothing happens until something moves, said Einstein. That it's a universe of movement, a universe of energy. And that I was down in Australia and they asked me on a TV show down there in August, what is your mission? And without even hesitating, and I wasn't even sure where it came from, I said, my mission is God realization. And she said, well, what do you mean by that? And I wasn't even quite sure. I know that I came across a quote. One of my very favorite observations is this quotation from Swami Paramananda. Now listen to this. Self-realization, he said, means that we have been consciously connected with our source of being. Consciously connected with our source of being. Once we have made this connection, then nothing can go wrong. So if you can make the connection to God realization, if you can do that and understand what it is and what it means. Now, in The Power of Intention, I've talked somewhat about connecting to this source, and I've tried to, when I sat down to write it, I sat down with a purple pen and a pad of paper, and I just allowed it to flow through me. It was the same thing that I was telling you before about contemplating, seeing, thinking from the end, always acting as if what it is that you would like to attract into your life is already here.